we really want to talk to you about why thinking about content as a product, not a project, makes a huge difference in the results and the way that you're able to actually deliver experiences to our audiences. And to just sort of start us off, Matt and I want to talk a little bit about what we do and what our roles are at the Cleveland Clinic. So Robert mentioned that we have been monetizing our content and building content marketing as a profitable part of our business. That has really been a lot of my focus. I am responsible for our overall content strategy and our creative services department, really delivering content creation that is aligned to those strategies every day. I love being on this stage. I talk a lot about what we do. And Matt has really been behind the scenes for a long time supporting our work and is our Senior Director of Content Engineering.
And I can speak. And so what we do is, as Amanda and her team are creating all this great content, it might be stored in multiple systems. You have one in WordPress, one in Sitecore. And our big problem then is, as we're bringing all the content together, how do you make sure for the visitor it's a seamless experience, that it literally just magically appears on the screen, and they don't know whether you're pulling from one site or maybe 50 sites. And you probably experienced this in your real life, where if you're like me a million years ago, you built your first website in Notepad, and then when WordPress came out, you were really excited, and you built that. But then Facebook came along, and everything kind of got jammed into a box. And you know this happened in your business too, where first somebody came up with something to put out there on the web in the late 90s maybe, and then in the early 2000s, the proliferation of domains happened with everybody on their own site. And you had to try to figure out, how are we going to bring these things together? And the problem is that we started to answer the complexity of all these little sites coming together into a single system with more complexity. It's that one big mega site problem. And so projects kind of just came along with that. You didn't want to rock the boat. People had their own site. And so what people wound up doing was, instead of trying to say, let's rethink the whole system, let's think about how we're going to maintain that focus that each one of those little websites had, we started to add a lot of complexity on top of it. You needed to have review boards and architectural committees who are talking with ITD and all your other technical people about these things. You got to start coming up with universal taxonomies and all of these other sorts of things as well, so that you could cope with the fact that you're trying to jam everything into one system, and you're trying to build one system for all people. And what we've done then is we took a step back and we said, how do we get ourselves out of this trap that we've basically found ourselves in? And we said, well, rather than thinking about product or projects where you have to think of all these things, we should really approach it the way the software world does and think about it more like products, things that are, well.
When Matt started to talk to me a little bit about this, I was like, whatever, dude. We're like cranking out thousands of pieces of content a week, and like I don't even really understand what you mean. The reality is we've actually been doing this for kind of a long time. The conversation that we started to have about a year and a half ago, probably, really just sort of labeled a lot of what we were doing and put it into a structure that is really aligned to the thinking that's always sort of been behind the work that we've been doing in content marketing. But projects and kind of defining what we're talking about today, I think, is important. We have project managers on our team, right? They are really focused on getting stuff done, right? Cross it off the list, move on to the next project, assemble the next meeting, right? Calendars and timelines and due dates. And that's really not what we're talking about in most of the things that we do in content marketing anymore. Right? Our work is never really done, and there's never really a deadline. But then on the flip side, when you're talking about products, you typically tend to think about things like retail, right? Or hardware that you're purchasing, which is actually okay. Because along those same lines, if you think about what happens with iterations of products and how the products you buy get better, right? You think about the iPhone, for example, right? We're on iPhone, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, who the hell knows anymore? But those iterations and thinking about how to constantly provide something better to your customer is exactly the right thinking. This is exactly the right word and the right way to think about what we do every single day.
Yeah, and so to be frank, this was also inspired by Amanda, our approach to use products as well. Because one of the things as we started to try to figure out how, instead of trying to have a dozen different project managers meeting in a room to talk about all the collisions that might happen, we instead help align everybody what we've realized again was, your customer has to be at the center, and that's something that Amanda and everybody else here at content marketing knows. And so we brought this, which was just a really simple model to just illustrate what we really need to focus on. Because all of your revenue models, all of your cost structures and everything else that goes on, all of the people in ITD or the other infrastructure areas, those are all important, but at the end, they're only important in the sense of who is it that you need to help and how do you help them? What is the way that you give them something valuable? And so we use this to think about that and cut everything out. If you're more of like a media company, or if media is really your focus, the content is your product, then you're done. You can start to use something like this right out of the box. But if, like us, really it's patients trying to connect with care, then we kind of fill the gap in between those as we think about how are we fostering the right relationships through the right channels, which you've heard today. So this is really a way for us to take all of those different concepts and align them in a way that helps us really think about this. And so what we wanted to share with you today then are 2 case studies here that really illustrate the lessons we've learned as we started to roll this out internally. Because this is a big change, but it's a big change that's actually brought us a lot of benefit.
Yeah, we've actually, like I said, been doing this kind of a long time. But this product thinking and defining products really does bring clarity to your content strategy. And it aligns things that we talk about as content marketers all the time, like personas, right? Like distribution channels and platforms. And the story that I want to tell you is one that I've talked about a lot for years, but it's never the same. And every time I tell it, there's something new to sort of add to it. And that is really because of this product thinking. So Health Essentials started in 2012 as a blog called Health Hub. Okay, so almost 7 years ago now, we started publishing content on a WordPress site. Everything went chronologically. Everything was just, okay, we're going to write content, and people are going to find it through search, magically. That was the thinking in 2012. As you can imagine, that didn't go very well. I joined the team in 2013, took a look at what was going on, and I asked the question, who's this for? Right? And the answer was, we don't know. We're just writing whatever anybody in the institution is asking us to write. And they were literally meeting with clinical project and marketing managers, asking them what their priorities were, and that was the order in which they created content. Okay? That is not how we do things today. That is where we started from. But we have continuously iterated and really thought about what are we delivering and who are we delivering it for, and that's evolved over time too. This is actually an old version of the site as well, just from 2018. But we were in this mode of 3 to 5 articles every day for 6 years, chronologically going down the page. And we said, we can do better than this. We're no longer just a corporate blog site anymore. Our users, our audience, our customers want more. This product can be better. Even though we were successful and the traffic numbers were through the roof and we continue to grow and evolve this site, we could be better. And we took a period of time and kind of looked at the data and said, what are we? Who are we? What do we want to be? What do we want this product to say to our audiences? And we completely redesigned it. But we didn't do this in a way that was like a big bang, flip the switch, like redesign. We really kind of started to make some shifts on the site. There was a gradual transition. It was introducing features, right, and efficiencies and things to our audiences to kind of see where is it worth going a little deeper? Where is it worth offering a little more, right? What kinds of features and benefits do we want to deliver? And what we launched in December, there was a little bit of a flip switch because we did have to do some things in the design space to make this work. But what we went for was a much more media feel to the site, more modern, speaking to her. We know our audience and our persona is a female who's making a lot of medical decisions for herself and her family. We wanted this to feel very much for her, thinking about what topics are relevant to her on a daily basis. Our homepage, while our site is monetized, there are no ads on the homepage. The homepage is an invitation. It's an introduction to that product. And we want to make sure that she's enticed enough to go further, click through, get more. And we also wanted to make sure that we were able to customize and curate what's relevant today. We want this site to be like a media site. So that doesn't mean everything goes chronologically down the page like a traditional blog. So this is customizable and curated by our editorial team every single day, much like a newspaper would curate their cover, right? That's how we treat this. It was also 100% mobile first. So while this is a desktop view for screenshot purposes to show you as much of that page as we could, on a phone, this is a beautiful experience. Again, that's very visual, and we knew exactly what kinds of image sizes worked best because we had tested that over time. That was one of the things that we were doing and thinking through every step of the way. We also know that we have additional products that we were not showcasing to this potential customer. We have a health library that provides A to Z content, encyclopedia-like content, that we would never write about on Health Essentials, but we were not showcasing that in any way. So if you, as a customer, wanted to take a deeper dive into a topic, you couldn't see that. So we really thought about content. Actually, I would almost change the slide to say product integration. How do we really connect the things that we can offer, the services that we provide, the value that we provide with content? So we actually built a Health Library Explorer tool in the back end so that our editors could just quickly type in a disease or a condition or a treatment, and it would pre-populate this box with links to that content, because we also monetize the library. So there's cross-benefit there as well from a revenue standpoint. But really thinking about how can we provide more value to the customer? How can this product give them more? And that doesn't mean that it sells Cleveland Clinic services. This doesn't do that at all. And that's been something we've definitely been pretty adamant about on Health Essentials from day one. This does not talk about how great we are, any of our US News rankings. None of that stuff belongs here. This does not talk about our amazing doctors. This is about useful, helpful, relevant, actionable information for anyone in the world, whether you're a patient or not. But it's a product in the sense that we also generate revenue through advertising, right? So driving that audience is important to us in a different way today than it was when we were not doing that as a traditional blog. So you can see it's a journey. It's a constant evolution. We have made little incremental changes over a 7-year period of time. Our content strategy has not changed. Has not changed. It is one sentence. It is to engage users in daily conversation using health, wellness, and clinical content that is unique to Cleveland Clinic. Period. Little incremental changes, though, to make that experience better, and it has worked. I cannot even begin to tell you what an amazing, amazing journey this has been. We went from 0 visits in 2012 to more than 7 million visits a month today. No change in strategy, not more content, little incremental improvements to the product, not more content. Those numbers did not come from creating any more. Literally 3 to 5 articles every single day for the last 7 years. So products and this way of thinking bring clarity to that. It allows our strategy to be enacted in a way that just thinks about the user, thinks about the customer, provides value in every decision we make, and they're telling us what they want, right? All of that data that we have access to, all of those little points on Google Analytics, or even the things that happen on social media or in our e-newsletters, those are also products, right? How can we be better? How can we deliver more value every time?
So what about when you have to fill that little gap and you're not essentially a media company inside a larger company? And this is where the products bring a lot of clarity to process to help you with that simplicity that you need to help you be as reactive as Amanda is. We have 2 different, just released in 2018, products that really are reaching out to people in very specific and clinical ways. One with the charts there is about outcomes. And by that, what we mean is, as you come to Cleveland Clinic for care, we track you after you leave to see, did you have any complications, any infections? How long did you live, even in some cases, to help really inform people what kinds of care you'll get here and what our results are. At the same time, we want to also share research with you. So what are the clinical trials out there? And in both of those cases, we could have built a site for everybody, or we could have focused on very specific segments of our visitors. And so with outcomes, we focused on basically clinical visitors, people who were medical professionals, while with our clinical trials, we decided we wanted to focus more on patients. And by doing this, we helped clarify all of the conversations. At Cleveland Clinic, we're broken up into, I think it's 14 or 16 different institutes, each of which is like a business unit. And one thinks about your heart, and one thinks about your brain. And the kinds of patient journeys for somebody who has cancer, for example, is a lot different than somebody who has an aching knee, because there's time limits, there's complications, there's a lot more options in some cases about what kinds of care and treatment you can get. And so by thinking about what a physician needs for outcomes versus what a patient might be looking for clinical trials, we're able to clarify a lot of what we wanted to do with those initial releases. And so one thing that is baked in here, and as Amanda said, iteration is so important, is that as we built these with the expectations that we had to learn what to do next. So this is completely new content that we're putting out there. We'd never done it before. We don't have years of history and analytics to inform us on what we want to do next. And so what we wanted to make sure was clear from the start is we're going to focus on, for example, patients who are looking for clinical trials at Cleveland Clinic, and we need to engage all the right people. In our marketing world, we already have those people because, thanks again to Amanda, we have a lot of training there, and the people are already in place to help us think about analytics. We have data scientists on our team who can all help us build that model from the start. But what we needed to think about is how do we start to set ourselves up for success? We don't need a lot of steering groups or a lot of other committees. We need one very focused working group who says, if we're getting clinical trials out there to people who want to participate, who may be candidates, what do we do first? What do we do next? What is legal? What is ethical? Because that's a big deal, obviously, for us and with trials. And build that in so that expectations were clear, that we were starting the same kind of a journey that Amanda started on years ago, but in this case, for this sort of care. And it's been really successful because first, expectations are set out of the gate. Second, people find you then. As soon as you start to work with people as a product and you describe the initial 1.0 release that you're going to put out there for this, people start to talk about it with others, and suddenly they come out of the woodwork because the clarity around what you're doing is there, that if you're talking about projects seem to be a bigger part of something that somebody else owns. Products give ownership to everybody. They allow participation in ways that you can't really do with projects because, again, a project manager is about getting things done, and anybody who gets in the way, they get rolled over, or they get someone to yell at them.
Uninvited to the meeting.
Or they get invited to more meetings, right. With products, it was really easy for us to go to the institute leadership and say, who in your area should be part of this? And then, like I said, people who just heard about it came along and said, can I come to your meetings? And I want you to think about how many project meetings you have where people ask to start showing up because they want to be there, not because they're worried about what you're doing, right? And so this was a really big thing to help us organize internally about what we wanted to do, about how to bring people in, and then also help to set people up to say your voice is going to be heard. So as we continue to improve this, release after release, as we expand the content, we're going to talk to you about, well, first, how do you maintain the content? How are we reaching more people? How are we using the analytics? And we share those analytics with you so you can take that back and think more deeply about it in your particular area, but then bring those back to the group to help us iterate and build better product month after month, quarter after quarter, year after year.